spotlight review of the Power Rangers Lightning Collection S.P.D. Shadow Ranger. I've made a few modifications to my figure, which you may be able to tell right away, but if not, we'll get into full description when we get to the action figure. But, as partake of every single video review on this channel, we must first put the figure aside for a moment, so we can take a look at the packaging. Up close in your face, and here we got Power Rangers Lightning Collection S.P.D. Shadow Ranger. Hasbro's logo at the bottom right corner, the very lovely artwork of the Shadow Ranger here. And then we've got warning choking hazard at the top right corner with ages 4 and plus. On the left side of the packaging, we got the rest of that lovely artwork of the Shadow Ranger with Power Rangers SPD at the top. On this side of the packaging, we've got that lovely artwork again of Shadow Ranger. Take a look at the back of the packaging, and here's the computerized render form of the figure, which looks to have more paint than the actual final release. And down below all that, we got some licensing and the Hasbro logo at the bottom left corner here. Nothing on the top, and nothing too specific on the bottom unless you want to see the barcode. And that's going to do it for the packaging, so let's go ahead and put that away now. Alright, so here is the Shadow Ranger action figure in all of his glory. Now, the first thing that you will notice that he is leaning a little bit on his left side because his right leg is just a tad bit longer than the left leg. That's a problem that my figure consists of. Your results could be different. Who knows? Anyway, let's just go ahead and take a look at the figure up close. And as you can see, we do have some nice paint work, especially for what I applied to the figure here. But specifically saying nice would be a bit of a stretch because some of the paint work on this figure done by Hasbro is kind of sloppy. If you look at the belt, you can see what I'm talking about. That's not a clean job at all. Take a look at the chest piece here, and they did the best that they could for the number 100 with the highlights of red, but everything else seems to be a sloppy work here. Around anything that's black, maybe even right here, you can see some of the blue, it's actually bleeding through the red. Taking a look at the back, we do have a little bit of some imperfections right there. This side looks pretty good, but this side you will notice that, yeah, that's not that good, is it? Silver paint here for the badge, that's not actually painted at all on the helmet originally. And then I decided to paint the insides of the ears here with the white, just so it looks a little more convincing, even though I didn't do the white outline to the visor, which would have been very difficult. And then I decided to paint up the stripes here with some gunship gray, just to, you know, give it a little pop here, something that is very consistent and very iconic with the designs of the SPD helmets, and they couldn't even fit it in the budget to paint any of this. That's kind of sad. And taking a look at the badges on the shoulder, I did have to paint these as they were just black plastic. And even this little SPD logo here, I painted that up with some silver as well. Going down to the forearms and these sections here, these oval shapes were not painted. They were just, well, they were painted with this metallic blue, but that's what I'm trying to say. I had to paint these up. And even these red pieces here, I had to actually paint these. Unfortunately, once again, enamel paint means it rubs off very easily. And if you're not careful with the way you mix your paints, it could also be sticky at times. And taking a good look at the buckle here on his belt, and we do have the SPD logo with what is actually a sculpted handcuff in there. There's the rest of that nice striping going all the way down the leg, and I do mean all the way down because if you actually remove this piece here, which it is its own separate piece, you can kind of see right there on the inside, it does continue all the way down to the ankles. And giving props to Hasbro, at least they did paint the red here around the shin guards in a very clean paint job. And here's the look at the bottom of his shoes here, and we do have some nice details even though it's, you know, black plastic and very difficult to see on camera. And taking a look at the back of the figure, and once again, it's alright, not bad. And just like the other Lightning Collection figures of this line, the holster is actually sculpted with the belt. Okay, so going into articulation on the Shadow Ranger, and he does have a ball joint at the head, even though you really can't get any inquisitive posing here. Have a hinge joint at the neck, but the collar piece is so high up, it kind of restricts it in a way. And we do have a butterfly joint for the shoulders. And then we got the hinge joint at the shoulder. And as you can see, these move very easily without being restricted by tightness. We also have a swivel joint to allow full 360 rotation. The bicep swivel cut as well. Double jointed elbows. There's wrist rotation. And we also have a hinge joint for inward and outward movement. Upper torso is ball jointed. There's an ab crunch to the figure so you can get that much going forward. And 2 clicks going back. The legs are ball jointed at the hips so you can get this much kicking forward. Nothing going back. And you can get more of a split on the Shadow Ranger figure, but it's still no JCVD quality. And we got a thigh swivel cut at the hips. Double jointed knees, it gets more than 9 degrees of bend. A swivel cut at the boots section. The ankles have a hinge joint on some clicking ratchets so you can get a little bit of some up and down movement, as long as this piece doesn't get in the way. And then you got your lovely ankle rocker pivot, which is on par with Marvel Legends. As for accessories, Shadow Ranger comes with its iconic Shadow Saber, the truest sword in the galaxy that will right all wrong. We do have some very lovely sculpting on this, especially at the handle piece. You can see a lot of buttons and all that, but nothing's really painted except for the handle being in gloss black and this little bit of red here. Figure also sports a effect piece where it can actually slide onto the blade of the Shadow Saber. And this effect piece here kind of reminds me of when the Shadow Saber was being restored at the blade after many years of combat. Of course, we could put the weapon in the Shadow Ranger's hand, and it looks pretty cool with the effect piece. But if you don't want to use the Shadow Saber, it can slide very comfortably inside the holster. Next accessory we have is pretty much some interchangeable hands, with the left hand getting a balled up fist. As you can see, some nice sculpting there from what you can see from the lights above that's shining down on the plastic. But the right hand is actually sculpted in the most iconic pose for the Shadow Ranger, which I will demonstrate simply by removing this hand and replacing it with the new hand. And as you can see with the sculpting of this hand, he can pull off that very common pose, which looks very nice. Another accessory that the figure comes with is the S.P.D morpher, which looks pretty nice. The only problem is it should have been printed this way rather than the opposite side. But regardless though, the Shadow Ranger can still hold it even if it is printed on the wrong way. And finally, the last accessory that the figure comes with is in 2 parts, starting off with this neck piece here. And then he's got his head. Yeah, believe it or not, the Shadow Ranger actually gets his actual alien head from the show, right? So here's Commander Doggy Kruger. Now, given the fact that this is a $20 action figure, this may not be perfect, but I will say it is a major improvement overall since the last Shadow Ranger / Doggy Kruger figure we actually got from S.P.D's line. And switching this out is as simple as 1, 2, and a 3. Now dig that. Doesn't that just look absolutely stunning? And now with that, let's dare to compare with some other Lightning Collection figures such as Tommy the White Ranger and Tyler the Dino Charge Red Ranger. Chalk up another one on the positive side of this review miniseries. The Lightning Collection so far is 3 and 3. I love the Shadow Ranger figure. Minor nitpicks aside, and I'm talking about the paint job that could have been so much better, I will admit that the Shadow Ranger is probably the coolest figure to come out of the first wave of the Lightning Collection. Except that's talking about the Rangers. Now, if we're going to talk about the next figure to come out of this line, which happens to be the last one of Wave 1 for the time being, that's an argument for another day. However, should you pick up the Shadow Ranger? Absolutely. If you're a fan of S.P.D, you're going to love this figure, especially since the last incarnation that we got of the Shadow Ranger in action figure form was back in 2004, if I'm not mistaken. And that was just a 5-inch action figure. Well, you know, to be honest, the over-muscular proportions on that figure was pretty much on par with the design in the show, which should be the only character to have muscular proportions like that, which is why I'm glad they didn't skip a beat on the sculpting on this figure. He looks phenomenal. It looks almost perfect. It does have a little bit of some gripes here and there, maybe not enough paint, and you know, the sculpting of the headpiece here for Kruger does look really good, and I'm glad we got an Americanized version this time around instead of the Anubis Kruger that we got with the original 5-inch action figure from S.P.D. I love this. This is just so good. I just wish it had a little more paint detail, but hey, again, it's something I can fix on my own, like I did with some of the pieces that really needed some paint work. Interchangeable hands is always a plus. I love the effect piece that this figure comes with, and above all, it's not a lightning effect piece. But beyond that, yes, this is a figure I truly recommend, just like the other 3 out of this line. So questions or comments, you know, do hit it down below in the comment section of the video. If you like today's video review, hit the thumbs up button. Don't forget to give me a sub up. If you didn't like it, hit the thumbs down. Don't forget to throw in the towel. And until then, my friends, this is the unprofessional toy reviewer Red's power sign off by saying, when the opportunity persists, don't give up on your dreams, siege the moment, and thank you for watching.